The fourth round of the Isle of Man International 2018 saw a very interesting pairing. Five-time world champion Vishy Anand was up against GM Shyam Sundar. Now, why was this pairing interesting? It was because Shyam was the second of the Indian team at the Batumi Olympiad. He was helping Team India with preparation, trying to analyze lines, suggest things to the players, and of course he would have helped Vishy Anand. So in that sense, Shyam had a very fair idea of what the style of Anand was. So how was Vishy going to approach this game as white? What was going to be his strategy? What was going to be his opening? Let's find out. Well, one thing that you have to learn from Anand is that he sticks to his strengths, and he knows that if center control is extremely important in the opening, and he's going to do that. So that's why it's very rare that you will see Anand shifting to lines like B3, G3 or even F4. Sometimes he does play C4, but that's also controlling the center. So he opened with E4, Shyam went E5, and then knight to F3, knight C6, bishop B5, F5, and this is where everything became extremely interesting. Shyam must have seen the game between Anand and Robert Hess from the second round, where Hess played a sideline in the French defense and Vishy struggled in the opening with white and got a minus position. So Shyam thought the best way is to play something where Anand might not have prepared something specific. And so the Schliemann F5 is aggressive, you get good play, but Vishy was calm. He played D3, controlling the center, and after F into E4, D into E4, the game becomes very, very positional in nature, because after knight F6, castle, D6, knight C3, what I'm trying to look at over here is that the pawn structure is what determines the play here. If you look at it, this is some kind of a reversed queen's gambit. So it's like a reversed exchange queen's gambit, and here these are the pawns H2, G2, F2, E3, D4, you can say, and black has the pawns which are D5, C7, B7, H7. So positionally, I would say that black is really doing excellently. His pawn structure is fantastic. He can develop his pieces quickly. I mean, the ideal situation would be that he can play bishop E7, bishop E6, castles, queen to D7, double his rooks down the F file and get excellent play. This is what can be the idea. But there is a big problem here, and the big problem is that the king on E8 is still in the center while white has castled. So this is going to play a major role. After bishop to E7, black wants to castle, and so as white, what do? I would like you to pause the video and try to think for a bit as to what move you would choose here if you were in Anand's shoes. Well, in the game, Vishy played the very nice move bishop to C4. Now you're stopping black from castling for the time being, and at the same time black has to come up with something in order to develop himself. Now a move like bishop G4 is possible. You can play queen D7, but it's going to take a lot of time. I can just push you back and then I can get out of the pin with something like queen D3, and I'm doing completely fine here with white. So what Shyam decided was that I should kick the bishop away from this diagonal, knight to A5, very logical move, and Vishy came back to E2. Now castling, this is normal, and knight went to D5. Again, a central move by Anand. He is trying to control the center. Knight into E4 is a mistake. I'm sure you spotted it. If you haven't, just think about it for a bit and you will find it. Knight takes E7, queen E7, queen D5. You choose the knight that you want to win, A5 or E4. King went to H8, and here queen came up to d3, and this is where came the next critical moment of the game. Shyam Sundar made a bad move here, a very critical error, and I would like you to take your time and think, if you were black, you have Anand sitting in front of you, what would you play here as black? Okay, I hope that you thought about your knight on a5. It's on the side of the board, it is doing absolutely nothing. Why not bring it back to c6? It's back in the game, it is looking at squares on d4, it's defending the e7 bishop. But Shyam didn't think about his knight. He took on d5, which was, according to me, a very bad move. E into d5, and the thing which is extremely important is, what are you going to do about the knight on a5? First of all, it cannot go back to c6, it cannot come to c4, and even if you try to play b6 to get the knight back, after b4, knight b7, it's kind of dominated. The knight cannot move. And this is a very common rule in chess, that a pawn which is 2 squares away from the knight, over here you can see that there are 2 squares in between the knight and the pawn will dominate the knight, because c5, a5, the knight cannot go there, and I don't see a good future for the knight on b7. So what was Shyam Sundar's idea? Why did he play knight into d5 and allow ed5? Well, he was getting a tempo, bishop f5, but I don't think that was the point, because after queen e3, there's no real follow-up. This pawn cannot be taken. You can play queen c3 or queen d2 and win either of the pieces. So we come here after queen e3, and I start to question myself. You know, Shyam Sundar is a player with whom I have played many times. A very strong player. He's beaten me, and whenever I have faced him, I have realized that he's such a strong player. He thinks logically. He has all these new ideas in the opening up his sleeve. So how can he make a move like, you know, knight takes d5, allowing ed5, and the knight is shut on the side of the board? I think it has to do more with psychology. When you look at a player like Vishy Anand, whom you have really revered and looked up to when you are growing up, and when he is suddenly sitting against you in front of the board, there are sometimes decisions you make which are not objective in nature, and this is what I think happened to Shyam, because otherwise I don't see any explanation for knight takes d5. Now Anand of course knew that he is better, and his next moves are excellent. So c5 was played, and Vishy now went for bishop d3, very good move. He knows that he has to exchange the pieces of black which control the light square, so that his knight can then safely sit on e4 square and be the happiest person in the world. b6, he took on f5, queen d3, and now what's the next move? I'm sure that you found it out. Knight to d2, e4 is the main square which you have to control, and after rook f8, knight e4. Black tried for some activity on the queen side with c4, queen e2, b5, but now is the question to you, what should white play here? And yeah, you could make moves like bishop e3, f3 in such positions, but you can realize that the knight on e4 is great, but on its own it will not win the game. Whenever you have one positional advantage, you must open another flank. You must open another part of the board where you can create a weakness. And that's what Anand did. He played the move b4. Very strong move. I know that you are thinking about a4 as well, but b4 is just so much stronger. Because first of all, if you take after ab3, the rook on a1 gets activated without having moved itself, which is such a pleasant feeling. And on the other hand, if you don't take like Shyam did in the game, knight b7, then white just goes a4, fantastic move, opens up the queen side after bishop b6, ab6, queen e3, he attacks the b6 pawn, and after ba4, queen into b6, the game is just over. Yeah, you can see that the knight on e4 is super strong, knight on b7 is poor. You have these weaknesses on a4, c4, d6. You have a passed pawn on b4. Well, what else does one need? Vishy now just quickly collected the pawns, first f3 and then queen b5. He now took the pawn on c4, then next came the pawn on a4, and now is where you learn from Anand. You have eaten everything, yeah, your stomach is full. Now you don't go for a hunt again. You don't go for moves like, let's say, rook a7, which could be powerful. You just defend yourself. You just defend your position, rook a3, bring back the queen, be calm, solidify, rook e3, these last three moves, yeah, rook a3, queen e2, rook e3, and it continues, rook f2. It's not defense, it's basically converting an advantage, and Vishy does it perfectly. Now came the move g3, very nicely done, and after rook to e4, the g4 pawn was falling, and Shyam Sundar could, well, what could he do? He had to resign the game. So this was a battle between, you can say, a 2800 player and a 2550 GM. Both are very strong at their levels, but you can see what is the difference between the two players. While Anand kept making one logical move after the other, Shyam made a big positional error by taking the knight on d5, and after that you cannot expect Vishy Anand to err, and he just dismantled his opponent in the perfect fashion.